Good morning, War Report family. Your man Ike Jones here. We are dropping it on you. Zac Ethridge is officially back on the plains. Let's talk about that and the implications for this Hugh Freeze staff. Y'all know how we do, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Tuesday, December 20th. The morning drop is back here with you. My guy B Will in the place. We're dropping it on y'all, man. The morning drop, sponsored, of course, by Rogue Shop. You guys make sure you head over to rogueshop.com for all of your herbal supplement needs. #1 online store for health and wellness benefits. But B Will, how you feeling this morning, sir?
I'm feeling all right. Feeling a little hopeful, optimistic about what's about to happen. But we'll see. We'll see.
Hope and optimism. I like both of those things. I'm probably about to be interrupted by my son here. But yeah, it's you trying to work with your kid here at the house. It's just not optimal situation. But let's see. We're talking about Zac Ethridge, though. He is officially been named back on the staff. Haven't said exactly what his role is. Still says DB or secondary coach on his title. So I guess the assumption is that we're going to split the back end between safeties and cornerbacks, with Wesley McGriff being back as well. But what do you feel like the retention of Zac Ethridge says about what Hugh Freeze wants to do with this staff? And then I guess subsequently what Ron Roberts wants to do with his defense.
You know what? It makes me think that this is more about, I said this. So we messaged in the Slack last night and you were like, I said, was there any doubt that he was going to stay? And you was like, yeah, it wasn't a slam lock thing. My thought is, in this current environment, recruiting is not only important, it's gotten more important because you have to re-recruit your own guys. And then you are now in it for guys who you used to recruit before they committed to one place, they jump in the portal, or you have to recruit guys who you've never been in it for, but you've been scouting since they've been wherever they at, and they jump in the portal. He is a premium recruiter. You can't afford to let a premium recruiter walk out the door. You just can't. Not in a pass-happy college football where he recruits defensive backs and other players. He's not just a defensive back recruiter.
Right.
He was the guy, he was helping recruit James Smith when he was on campus this past weekend. You can't let that type of talent walk out the door. Now, I don't know what took so long. If it was about the money because all the other positions needed to get worked out. So let's see how much of a bump up, because a guy who was getting ready to walk out the door and go to Georgia can get a job anywhere he wants to go.
Pretty much.
You can't let that guy get out the door, and they didn't, which is why I had very little doubt that he was going to stay. If Hugh Freeze had let Zac walk out that door, that would have been the strike one on Hugh Freeze in my mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, so here's the brass tacks of it, though, and I talked a little bit about this. I can't remember. I've been doing so much content recently, having conversations about staff composition, right? I think it was Sunday when we were talking about this, about if you keep Zac, which now they have kept him, how do you justify his salary, right? Like, what role do you assign to him that he can put on a, email signature that makes it make sense for how much money you're paying your defensive staff, right? Because typically you're not going to pay a person who's just coaching safeties $600,000 a year, which is what Zac Etheridge's salary was prior to this season. Right? That's a lot of money when he's only coaching half of the back end of your defense. So like, what title is he going to get that's going to justify the salary? That means he's going to be secondary coach plus recruiting coordinator plus, like, something's got to, because again, last year, in order for them to give him that pay raise bump, they had to give him the associate head coach title, right? Because he was already doing the recruiting stuff. He was already coaching DBs, but then they had to give him another title so it could say, okay, here's something else that we can throw on here that now it makes sense for how much money we're paying you. So now the question it begs the question for me, how much money are they paying Zac Ethridge to do this, and what all are going to be his responsibilities to make it make sense? Before I let you answer that question or think about that for a second, I do want to say you guys are watching the Morning Drop, sponsored by Rogue Shop. Again, rogueshop.com, using code REPORT gets you 10%. Make sure you get your spelling up when you go over there, and make sure you use code REPORT so that they know that the War Report sent you. If you're attempting to comment on this video and you can't, it's because you are not a member of the War Report. We do these morning drops and we let members chat. Anybody can view it, but members are the only ones that can chat. So while you're in here, make sure you go ahead and get a membership to the War Report. Tomorrow, early signing day, we're going to be doing an early signing day live. I'm just going to get up and we're going to come in here and talk for a couple of hours while recruits roll in during the morning. So you don't want to miss that. That is going to be a members only stream, not a members only chat, but a members only stream. So you need to get locked in with that. Outside of that, you guys know what you need to be doing if you're here, sharing this video so that we can get more people in here having the conversation, because we do want to get more voices in the conversation, even if they can only comment later. If you're watching this video later, go ahead and drop your comments down in the live, excuse me, not in the live, but in the comment section. And while you're here, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel so that we can get our subscription numbers up, and we certainly appreciate that. All right, so we're talking about Zac Ethridge and his role on the staff and how that makes sense. So what do you feel like is going to be happening with his role on the staff outside of recruiting? We know Zac Ethridge is a dynamo of a recruiter, but what other things are we going to be doing with him that make sense for him to stay on board? Or do you think he took a pay cut?
I don't think he took a pay cut. Well, so when the news broke that Christian Robinson was not going to stay with Auburn, he wasn't going to be on staff, Zac tweeted out something like, if you're on a rocket ship, you don't worry about what your seat is going to be. You just make sure you're on the ship.
Yeah.
And to him, I don't know if he was that was his, subtweet message to Christian, like, hey, man, you might not have had the position that you wanted, or it may not have been a bump up or in pay, or maybe you had to take a pay cut, but you would have been on board to something that is going to be special here in short order. So if that is what Zac's thoughts were at that time, I wonder if that's the same philosophy for himself, which means I might get a lateral move, and it might not be an associate head coach, which was the title that he did have last season, but I'm where I want to be. We're about to do big things. We have resources at our disposal. So this is a good gig, and I'm willing to stay here, even if it's not exactly what I want at this time. Going from that, then I think, okay, maybe he goes from associate head coach back down to just secondary safety coach and ace recruiter. Like, I don't know if they put that in their title. I know that they do sometimes build recruiting into their contracts. I remember distinctly Rodney Gardner had like bonuses in his contract depending on how well he closed with defensive line recruiting. That was something that was built in. So it makes me wonder, so how is it structured for Zac? Did he take a cut, but if he lands big guys? Because like I said, he wasn't just recruiting secondary this past weekend. He was recruiting everybody. He was working everybody. So is it, you're the lead on this guy, you get this guy, here's some more bread? So it could work a number of ways, but my guess is that it had to be comfortable enough. It couldn't be too much of a cutter. I don't think you disrespect yourself like that. You know what you're worth, and you know you're valuable, so you could go anywhere. But it had to be enough to where he's comfortable with it. His skill set, which is safeties, yes, secondary, yes, but recruiting, which is the reason, like I said at the top of the show, that's why you keep him. So hopefully that's why they're rewarding him, and that's why that's going to make him some extra money, maybe in incentives, but maybe just in base salary.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, right? Because Christian Robinson was a pretty good recruiter, and there was no clash as far as his title is concerned, because you got Wesley McGriff in here now, who is a great recruiter in his own right, more so, on the secondary, not overall. But I think it says something to an understanding that Hugh Freeze has as to the value of certain people in the building, right? It's not just about whether or not they do their job and that job itself well. It's about the value that they bring to your locker room and to your program, that he wanted to keep him on. When you talk about him recruiting more than just the secondary folks, like he was, they have him listed as the lead recruiter on Robert Woodyard last year, right? Like that was a big time flip from Bama. And people give Caddy a lot of credit for Jeremiah Cobb, which he did work Jeremiah Cobb a lot, but the lead recruiter on him, Zac Ethridge, right? So Zac Ethridge was in on that, and one of the big folks for this cycle, Darren Reed, Zac Ethridge guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
All not in the secondary, but he's a guy that's out there on the road doing the work. You see him out there putting in the work with these recruits. And then to your point, the transfer portal folks, right? Like a lot of the folks that we've identified in the transfer portal that have made changes and differences in the last couple of years since Zac Ethridge has been here, he's been responsible for helping land that person and bring them in here to the Auburn family. So Zac Ethridge is invaluable, I think, in the short term for us. And I think it's going to be interesting, though, to see what happens in the long term, though, because his value just continues to increase. Does Auburn have a long-term strategy for how they're going to retain all of these folks on this staff, right? Because you got co-DC now, Wesley McGriff, who that to me is not just it could just be a title thing where they, all right, well, we need to slap another title on him so we can justify paying him some more money. But you can't continue to pay both of these guys this amount of money. Does that mean that eventually Ron Roberts is like a stopgap and one of those guys steps up to be your defensive coordinator, right? It also is interesting to me that, in all of this, man, we could have, I still feel like we could have got T. Will, man. Like, Ron Roberts wouldn't be here, right? And so I don't really know what that turns out to be as far as his ability. We've talked about him. We did a morning drop on Ron Roberts. You guys can go back and watch when we talked about that. But Ron Roberts wouldn't be here if T. Will was. But T. Will's another dynamic recruiter and has the ties to the university. So I think it's interesting that didn't happen. But I feel like it's clear that T. Will was ready to make that kind of jump away from UCF to be a defensive coordinator back in the SEC again. But yeah, I wonder what the long-term situation or play is going to be for these guys, because you got a lot of talent, but you also have a really big salary right now that you're tracking out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And I worry. So one of the things that we thought, and I think we said this when it got announced, when Hugh Freeze got hired, was that Hugh Freeze is kind of a bargain bin coach because of his past, because of the baggage that he had, because if there was somebody who you thought could duplicate what he did at Ole Miss and then take it to the next level, because Auburn is a next level program over Ole Miss. I'm sorry, you guys, but we appreciate your offensive line coach and that tackle's about to sign with us. If you believe that, then that kind of coach with the current climate, what coaches are making, he's an $8 million a year head coach, maybe $9 million. So we got him for $6.5 million. Now, what do you do with the rest of that money? You pay the staff to make sure that you hit the ground running and you get it right. So it makes me wonder, do they know, hey, look, we got a bargain here. We're going to start with $6.5 million. You have your incentives if you do a lot of winning, but go get the staff you want and don't cut corners. Like if the only concession with staff was they didn't want to come here, or when could they start? Like some very common sense logistics were the holdup, but it wasn't price. Was price the holdup on these guys? I got to think that this administration was like, listen, it doesn't matter. We need to win. We need to win big right now. Go get who you want. And that's what makes me think, hey, we're going to keep these guys. I don't think Zac Ethridge would take a pay cut, because that's something personal. You love Auburn, but you know what you're worth. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I don't think he'd be like, yeah, I'll stay for 100. No, he's not going to stay for 100,000.
Yeah, no, definitely
you
not.
Know what I'm saying?
Huge pay cut. But again, it could be incentive lace, right? Like, I'll take a little bit less up front. I'll take more on the back end because I feel like I can go work and get that additional bread. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see when the contract details come out about what happened. And again, what his official role is. I haven't checked recently to see if he made any sort of announcements about that. But last I checked, his Twitter thing still said secondary coach. So, all right. Again, you guys are watching the morning drop here with the War Report. If you can't comment, it's because you're not a member. Make sure you are a member of the War Report. And tomorrow, members, we are going to be doing an early signing day live. Will be here early in the morning through probably around lunchtime, just giving you guys live updates about the recruits that sign and thoughts and instant reactions on those sort of things. You got to be a member to be a part of that. The rogueshop.com is the place that you need to go for all of your health and wellness benefits. Listen, Rogue Shop is America's #1 online dispensary and health and wellness shop. Make sure you visit the website. 24/7 chat function where customers can ask questions about all of the things they sell, from CBD to THC, edibles, smokables, bath salts, pain creams, topicals, vapes, candles, soaps, you name it. They've got it at rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 10% off of your purchase. We're going to go here to the chat now and see what everybody's talking about over here. You guys make sure you drop your thoughts, and we'll start with Florence Tiger, who said recruiting season is fun again. When was recruiting season not fun? I don't know.
It was always fun. It's just that it ended up not mattering if we didn't get the guys we wanted. But if so far, this recruiting season is very fun. Yeah.
Again, commits are fun. Signings are better. Tomorrow we'll see how much fun we're still having.
Yeah.
When all of the speculation of who might sign actually puts it on the dotted line, who is committed but pushes it out till later on, right? All of those things. I think there's a lot of excitement around, but I think recruiting season's always been fun for me. I get it. Everybody's a little bit more enthusiastic because they like the prospects of what's happening. I like it too. I'm not trying to poo-poo on the parade. ATK Notorious came on board as a member. We appreciate that very much. You guys go ahead and make that jump to the Green Name Gang. We're going to have a lot of fun over the next couple of weeks talking about Auburn football and Auburn basketball. Don't forget, basketball is happening. In fact, there's a game tonight for the women. Tomorrow, the guys are going to be out there taking on Washington. So you guys make sure that you support if you're in the Auburn area for the ladies. And freaking got to watch the Pac-12 network to watch the guys, but whatever.
What? I'm not watching. I can't.
I mean, I might as well have Bill Walton back on there again if it's going to be on the Pac-12 network. Yeah. Stefan Catling says, y'all think we can get in the top 20 possibly tomorrow? B. Will, thoughts on top 20?
So top 20, it's interesting to me that nobody has quite yet found a way to put a value on transfer guys. So when we're talking signings, they're ranking it by incoming high school players and JUCO players. But I think, you can find a game-changing quarterback in the portal and then that count towards your recruiting metric. But obviously, it's huge. The portal is huge. So we got, what do we know? We got the tight end that we just signed out the portal. That was our first big portal sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a tight end. That dude could end up being all world for us, but he wouldn't count towards the rankings. So as far as the metrics go, the ones that will count towards the rankings, could we get top 20? We could. But
it's going to take flipping one of those big names that are out there.
Right. It's possible. I think it's definitely possible come February after all that signing is done and all the JUCO sign up. But I'm less worried about that and more worried about position. Did we get guys to fill needs and how quickly can they fill those needs because they're JUCO or their transfer? So we'll see, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. No.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I think I definitely think that we could. I don't know if we'll do it tomorrow, to your point, but I think that we could close the entire recruiting cycle in the top 20. But here's the thing, that you pointed out that I want to circle back to is it's more about position of need. And then it's going to be about the quality of the talent that we're bringing in with it.
Right.
I think sometimes we get too caught up in the numbers of how high the ranking is. And then we forget a lot of those guys that are in that class, you never see ever play for your team. Right. And so the recruiting ranking looks wonderful, but then that talent never touches the field. How much benefit was it to your school?
Right.
Listen, I was going to say, I hate to bring it up again, but I actually don't. I enjoy bringing it up. Texas A&M had the highest recruiting class in the history of recruiting classes last year, right? As far as composite score was concerned. And I don't know if 50% of those kids will ever touch Kyle Field as a Texas A&M Aggie.
Right. I don't know that they're already gone right now. So
if they ever play at Kyle Field, it will be a practice scrimmage or as a visitor.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely, if you recruit high, then that gives you the higher probability of having more quality talent.
Right.
And I understand that fundamentally, but I don't get caught up in it so much because I really want to see how good are we evaluating talent and placing it on the field. I just want to finish well. Right. I want to finish well on the field, not necessarily just in the recruiting rankings, but it's important. I'm not going to act like having talent is not important. It absolutely is. But in the era of the transfer portal, not as big a deal for me. Lee Bands, how do you feel about Falk? 50-50?
I think he's probably 60-40 Florida State. It seems that he actually likes Florida State. So this dynamic happens a lot. So they get recruited early by somebody and, that person offers them the best combination of, here's what you could get in NIL and, you're going to start right away and come to the campus. They make it all about them and they like that place, right? But another place starts pushing. You got some stuff to think about. Auburn was not doing well as a program under Harsin when we were pushing for Falk. Florida State actually had a really good season for Florida State. They improved year over year. The quarterback.
Florida State fans think they're winning the national championship next year.
Okay. God bless them.
I'm not making that up. I saw multiple tweets about it, about the come on board the national championship train for 2023 to recruits. So
yeah, if they couldn't beat this Clemson team, then I don't want to hear anything from Florida State. This was the most beatable Clemson team in a long time. Well, since last year, and they didn't beat them last year either. So Florida State is still like middle of the pack ACC. They're not too much to write about, but they've got momentum. And I think that's attractive to Keldrick Faulk because a coach is going to tell you, hey, man, we're building. We're on the way up. So get on board. So if you like them, if you like the place, you like the school, you like the players that you got to meet, and then they're actually doing what the coach said they would do, I think that's hard to beat. I think if the Florida State had faltered last year, if they fell back to 6-6 or whatever they were the year before, we'd have a better shot at it. Because then Kevin, was it Norvell? Mike Norvell?
Mike Norvell, yeah.
Then he might be on the hot seat. And then you have to wonder if you're committing to the right place, if the coach might be out the door the next year. So I think they're doing just good enough to keep him. If we flip him, I think that's a phenomenal get. That is a phenomenal get because I think he's actually pretty solid to Florida State. I think we got a better chance of flipping. I saw somebody, James Barnett mentioned him, Tony Mitchell, because our secondary played well and Bama's secondary got chewed up all year. And we've got great secondary recruiters right now, fantastic ones. I think we've got a better chance at flipping a player in a secondary where those are maybe our two best recruiters. Maybe it's even with Cadillac down there in the running back room, but we've got a better chance at him than we do with Keldrick Faulk. And that's just because I don't know if our outside linebacker or if our defensive line coach has the bona fides like our secondary coaches do.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Tomorrow, again, we're going to be doing the early signing day live. So you guys jump on in here with us. And as we get the news, then we'll update you guys. All right. He said, do y'all hear about the QB we offered? I'm not sure which QB outside of the one that was the Liberty offered initially. And
I think that was it.
Okay.
That was him. Yeah. So yeah, he offered and he got an offer. And it makes me wonder though, does this mean that we are striking out on both McCall and Leary? And that's what this
I don't know. I don't know if that means that, right? Like he was a Liberty guy already. We everybody was clamoring that we needed to bring in some sort of freshman in this class. And
we already got one,
in the
right?
class. But see, so I'm not certain that that young man is going to be anything but a preferred walk-on when it's all said and done. So though he had an offer from the previous staff, I don't know if he's been re-offered from this new staff. And so we'll see.
I think he met with them.
He did.
And
he was there this weekend, I believe.
Okay. And he put out a tweet. I think he got interviewed by somebody. And he was saying that he liked the vibes. He still wanted to come. I don't think there was a firm word on whether or not he was going to keep.
And so here's the thing, right? Like there wasn't a firm word on that, but then they offered another kid the very next day.
Right. So, I mean, I get it. But if we're assuming one freshman, one transfer, and then you got Robbie and Holden already in the tank, then that's pretty much it as far as guys who could realistically stand a chance to actually be contributors. Because
I don't think there's a problem with bringing in two freshmen, by the way. But
the second freshman has to know that's not going to happen, though. That's really the issue. Now, if you're behind, if we're saying, hey, we might give you an offer, we might not, just hold on. All right. And then I offer my old homeboy, and we've already got a guy who played, who has the experience 1 year on staff, on the roster, on the field here. You've got a guy who did his red shirt, and then we bring in a transfer, assuming we still bring in an experienced transfer,
which I think you need to.
Right. So if that's the case, then Jenkins has to know it's like, I'm not really going to get to play here unless some just catastrophe happens. And to be fair, didn't Hugh Freeze get down to like his fourth string quarterback last year?
Did he what now?
Get down to his fourth string quarterback last year?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't we? Technically, we got down our fourth string quarterback last year.
Right.
Calzada couldn't go.
And that's why I've been on the train of like, you need at least 5 guys in camp because you don't know what's going to happen after spring. Somebody might transfer. So I don't think it's a problem that you bring in a transfer and you sign 2 kids. But, because you don't know what's going to happen post spring once you get to the assigning 2 deeps and people see what the reps are looking like, all that kind of thing.
Right. Because they can still jump. Yeah.
So you need 5 guys, in my opinion. So I think it's not a bad idea. And just because we offered the kid from Liberty doesn't mean he's actually coming either. right?
He probably would, because if he got an offer at Liberty, then that means Auburn is far and away the best offer he's going to get.
I'm not surprised if he happens to come here because, again, Hugh Freeze is a good quarterback coach, and we have now this dynamic quarterback staff. All right, a couple more here. Matt Reeves jumps in. Keep an eye on Tulane's bowl game. Some smoke around their QB hitting the portal after the game. So we'll take a look at that and see what happens. Our new member, but frequent viewer says, if tomorrow is a bust, this is a very interesting question that I am ready to talk about on Thursday or Friday on the morning drop after we see what happens. But if tomorrow is a bust, what are your thoughts on Hugh then? I don't know that I can project thoughts based upon potential, something that might happen in the future right now, but I think it definitely changes the conversation around Hugh Freeze with the fan base for sure. If all of this, everybody jumping up and down about commitments, and it doesn't finish the way that we thought it would.
Right. Because we're in it for several people, but we haven't landed anything. Well, we've gotten some guys. Don't get me wrong. We have gotten some guys. We needed some depth at defensive tackle. We got that. We needed a tight end, a pass catching tight end. So we got that. We needed, I don't think we necessarily needed help at safety, but that flip from Tennessee doesn't hurt. Quarterback, offensive line, and linebacker.
Right.
That is what I am saying. It's a good day or a bad day.
Offensive line, we've had some momentum. Haven't seen any linebackers. And the only quarterback is the Liberty kid so far, and no transfer portal guys. Right. So of the three positions of need, momentum is really only happening with two of them. It's an important one of the three.
Right.
But you need to see some other stuff happening in those other two places as well. And so hopefully Auburn will be able to get on track with that. All right, man, we're going to get out of here. Another morning drop successfully dropped on you guys. Once again, this is your boy from the War Report, Ike Jones, B. Will, about to get out of here. You all need to be hitting up rogueshop.com. Once again, using code RAPPORT. Tell them you guys the War Report sent you by using that code. If you weren't able to chat today, then you're not a member. If you want to hop on tomorrow's live, you got to be a member. $5.99 gets you to the patron level, $3.99 supporter level, and we appreciate each and every one of those. That's it, man. We're out of here. As always, War Eagle, and we will be back and dropping something on y'all again tomorrow.
Peace.
Drop!